Find the exact value of cosine of 75 degrees. All right, so the first thing you're probably thinking is, well, can I use a unit circle, right? Well, 75 degrees is not one of these nice angles that are on the unit circle. Okay, second thing is, it says the exact value, right? So you don't want the decimal form of this, right? We want the exact form, which is either a fraction, right? It may have some radicals in it or not. Okay, but we don't want the decimal answer. So we need to use an identity in order to get cosine of 75 degrees, okay? So do we know that there is identities, the sum and difference formulas for cosine, right? We know that the cosine of A minus B, okay, is equal to the cosine of A times the cosine of B plus the sine of A times the sine of B. And the other one, the sum formula for cosine, or the cosine of A plus B. All right, this is just going to equal cosine of A times cosine of B. In this case, we get a minus sine of A times the sine of B. Okay. Of course, there's proofs for this, right? There's a reason why this is true. We don't need to go over that. Okay? But this is the formula that we use. Okay? Now, if you look at this, wait a minute, cosine of 75 degrees, right? Well, I know that 75 is 45 plus 30, right? So, hey, look, I can just use the sum formula where A is 45 and B is 30 in order to find the cosine of 75 degrees, okay? You notice that we can actually use a variety of numbers, right? For example, we could use 120 minus 45. Okay, this would be a difference formula, so it doesn't really matter which ones we use. Okay? Of course, using these smaller numbers, right, maybe is preferred. We know that we eventually need to use cosine of 120, right? So that does have a negative value in it. So once again, as long as you use the correct values and don't mix up your signs, you should be fine. But in this case, let's use the sum formula for cosine, right? So we're going to say the cosine of 75 degrees, right, is equal to the cosine of 45 plus 30. And then we're just going to plug these values in accordingly. So for A is equal to 45 degrees, B is equal to 30 degrees, right? So we get cosine of 45 times the cosine of 30. In this case, minus the sine of 45 times the sine of 30. Right? Now you notice that these numbers, right, the 45 and the 30, we actually know those numbers. Right? I mean, of course, we could have used any numbers that we wanted, right? We could have done 75, which is, 51 plus 24, right? We could have used that, but it's not going to help us in this case, right? Because we know what the cosine of 45 is, right? And the sine of 45, and the cosine of sine of 30. Okay, so let's plug these numbers in then. Okay, we know that, okay, cosine 45 is rad 2 over 2, right? Cosine of 30 is radical 3 over 2. Sine of 45 is also rad 2 over 2. And then the sine of 30, which is 1/2. Okay, so now we just want to multiply these guys and simplify as much as we can. We get radical 6 over 4 minus, here we get radical 2 over 4. So when we combine these, we get radical 6 minus radical 2 all over 4. Notice this is called the exact answer. Okay, it's a fraction. It does have some radicals, which is okay. But it is a fraction that is simplified, right? It's not a decimal.